to your picture and click on the three dots and select and rename, please. So welcome to the newcomers. Hello, welcome to the Sufosec workshop on how to foster an enabling environment for the agroecological transition. So start please by renaming yourself. Go to your picture, click on the three dots and select rename. And please, yes, switch on your camera. And some other housekeeping rules. So please, if you do not talk, mute yourself. And if you have questions to anything, to the inputs presentation, please write these questions in the chat box. And please be also informed that the workshop will be recorded and that at the end of the workshop, we can share the presentations. And yes, we are looking forward to your openness and curiosity for this workshop. And please also be informed that at the end of this online workshop, you will be asked to fill in a survey, and you are kindly asked to do that. So who is here today with us? So we invite you kindly to write your name, the country where you're coming from, and the organization where you're working in the chat. So everybody knows a bit who is there, who is with us today. So yes, let us start then. While you will introduce yourself, yes, I see in the chat, I can introduce myself orally. So my name is Sarah Mader. I'm the Senior Advisor on Agroecology, working at SWISSAID, but also coordinator of the learning group Agroecology of Sufosec, who is organizing this learning journey on the online workshop today with you on how to foster an enabling environment for agroecological transition. Today, we will dive deeper into the promising mechanisms that favor sustainable food system changes. Today, more than 100 people registered to this online workshop, which is absolutely exciting, fantastic. This shows that the chosen topic of discussion is relevant to all of us working on agroecology. So to those who have joined, again, please name yourself and put your name and organizations in the chat box. This workshop is organized in the frame of the Days of Agroecology, which take place throughout the month of October in Switzerland. These Days of Agroecology are hosted by Agroecology Works, which is a network of actors on agroecology in Switzerland. So Agroecology Works and the Days of Agroecology, they organize a number of events, and you can check out these events if you're interested to join more. They are hosted everywhere in Switzerland, online, face-to-face, in English, in Spanish, in all sort of languages. And a great opportunity to also get to know other actors working on agroecology. So please check the program that Benno puts in the chat. So let us briefly look at the agenda of today's workshop. We will start with an overview on the key learnings from last year's workshop. We will then look at the food systems level of the agroecological transition, and we will especially focus on the promising mechanism how to foster change at these levels. So we are going to talk mainly about the level 4 and 5 of Gliessman's model of food system change. Then the case study from South Africa will provide us with an example of such promising mechanism and will stimulate the discussion that we will have afterwards in the working groups, where you are then invited to share your own experiences. So which mechanisms do you know that favor food system transformation at policy and market system level? And as a final step before we close, we will then try to link the takeaways by the SDC's Agriculture and Food Systems Network learning journey on food systems with our online workshop today and see sort of commonality or complementarities. So roughly that's the agenda of today. This workshop is embedded in a 4-year learning journey that goes from 2021 to 2024 and is coordinated by the Agroecology Learning Group of the Sufosec Alliance. This learning journey includes a virtual exchange in 3 phases, as you see here on the slide. The first phase took place in 2021 and looked at the models and tools for farmers learning and understanding. Then the second phase in 2022, last year, focused on success factors and practical measures to foster farmers' application of promising agroecological practices, particularly during the early stage of the agroecological transition. So we looked at what is happening on the ground, what's important for the farmers on the ground to embark on a transition. And now during this phase, we are going to focus mainly on the promising mechanisms, approaches to foster the enabling environment for agroecological transition. So this policy, market system, more societal level issues. So next, please. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Oh, please go forward. Oops. No, one. This. Yes, here we are. That's correct. So today we invite you to reflect and discuss how you and other agroecological practitioners can foster the agroecological transition at the food systems level. So which are the concrete promising approaches and mechanisms that can favor sustainable food system changes? That's the main question that we are going to discuss. And the output we hope to achieve based on the results from this workshop is to co-create an overview by and for practitioners of agroecology on promising mechanisms to foster sustainable food system changes. Next slide, please. Before we start diving into the workshop, we invite you to take a picture with us. So please turn on all the cameras and grab something you like. It can be something related to agroecology, a plant, or simply your glass of water, whatever is next to you. And then we take this picture just to have an overview on who is there and to have something to remember. So you can go on gallery, so you see everybody that is here and everybody. So I have here, oh, this is.
Yeah, cool.
How does it look like?
It looks good. There's still some people not having turned on their camera, so I still invite them to do that.
Yes, please, people, turn on the camera, grab something.
Wow, I see some fun people here.
Also the opportunity to see who is there.
Okay.
Everybody, we can have a look.
So Yes. So I say 1, 2, and 3. Smile. Okay, great. I think I got everyone. And I can show you quickly how this looks like. Sorry, this is here. And yeah, okay. I would need to refresh. Yeah, whatever. So that's how
So,
you should see it now.
oh yes, we can see it very small.
Small now.
It's very small.
We will share this later on with you.
We will see you later. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So let's go to the next slide on the key learnings from phase 2. Yes. So first, we would like to give you a quick overview of the key learnings from phase 2 of the agroecological learning journey of the Sufosec Alliance. Next slide, please. So if you have questions to this, please feel free and place them in the chat box. So far, 2 outputs were produced as part of the learning journey. The first one is an inventory of selected learning models and tools for agroecology. It presents selected learning models, approaches, and tools that are applied in the programs of the Sufosec partners. And then the output of the second phase focused mainly on the critical success factors in the early stage of agroecological transition. In the second document, we looked at the factors impact farmers' choices of farming practices. So these go from individual level to external conditions level. So from, for instance, personal beliefs and values of farmers to the policy environment. This is just to give you a short overview on the content of these synthesis documents of the last phase. Next slide, please. So based on this overview of factors that we just shown you briefly, we describe in this document a 9-step approach of how to identify these critical factors that need to be addressed to enable change. So we identify so-called drivers of change for agroecological adoption that you see here. And then in the last part of the document, we provide an overview on practical measures which can support farmers to experience early successes of newly implemented agroecological activities. Next slide, please. So in the following chapter at the very end, the key takeaways and learnings are captured to increase the changes of a long-term adoption of agroecological practices by smallholder farmers during the initial phase of the transition. So the key takeaways or action points are there. Carry out a solid participatory analysis on farmers' context and aspiration before you start. Contextualize interventions, try to identify, for instance, the quick wins in a specific context. Ensure equitable access and control over productive resources. Here, mainly, we talked about the land tenureship. Then combine the different extension approaches, so farmer-to-farmer exchanges, trainings, farmer field schools. Fifth, sensitize farmers, women and men, on gender issues and introduce labor-saving technologies. 6, involve youth in interventions. 7, strengthen social cohesion and infrastructure at the community level, so strengthen local organizations who support the farmers in the adoption. 8, strengthen linkages with other actors in the food systems in order to, for instance, to connect the farmers to the market. And 9th, shift the role of NGOs as a facilitation, to a facilitation role. So these are sort of the key takeaways of the last learning journey that most of you or many of you attended already. So the learning documents are available in 3 languages, and you may download them from the links in the chat. So if you have any questions, kindly write them in the chat. So with this, we can now dive into today's workshop and the focus of today's workshop, which, as I said already, we want to focus on the level 4 and 5 on Gliessman's model of food system change, after we focused during the last 2 sessions more on field level interventions. Level 4 and 5 go beyond the farm and consider the broader food system and society in which they are embedded in. So level 4, as you can see here on the slide, consists of re-establishing connections between the growers and eaters, consumers, and developing alternative food networks. This can include producers, consumers, and market aspect. This means we are aiming at equitable and local markets. Then level 5, focusing on rebuilding the global food system so that it is sustainable and equitable for all of us. This can include responsible policies, policies for small-scale farmers, rights to natural resources, including land tenure or payment for ecosystem services for farmers. So our today's discussion will be on how agroecological practitioners can influence those 2 levels, and thus create an enabling environment with the aim to boost the agroecological transformation. So please, next slide. So before we look now more closely into the mechanisms that can foster the sustainable food system changes, we would like to hear from you which activities you think impact the enabling environment the most. And so we invite you now to go on the Mentimeter. You can either scan the QR code here on the screen, or you can type in www.menti.com and so on. And you will see there options of activities that can foster agroecological transformation or the enabling environment for agroecological transformation. So if you go there, please rank the most important activity according to you. The most important one is on the top, and the least important one is on the bottom. So we can already see, what you think. It looks like you regard consumer preferences as the most important factor to support agroecological transformation. So the market aspect seems to be important, but also political pressure from the bottom is ranking high. Okay, there is some more changes on the ranking. Alliance with the private sector. Research evidence of agroecological benefit is also coming. Diplomatic dialogue seems not to be as effective. Okay, now the political pressure from the bottom is more important than the consumer preferences. So yes, I think this gives us already quite a good impression about that we are not wrong focusing on market and policy issues today, when talking about enabling environment to foster food system change. So it looks like you agree mostly on these two aspects, although within that there are very different approaches, to create pressure or to build an environment in terms of market. Thank you very much for this first impression. And so with this, I'm now very happy to invite Mervyn Abraham to share his case study with us, an example of a first promising mechanism approach, which highlights how advocacy and pressure through advocacy can foster agroecological food systems. Mervyn coordinates the Fastenaktion South Africa coordination team. He supports 7 Fastenaktion partner NGOs on national and international advocacy to upscale agroecology and the implementation of UNDROP. Mervyn also coordinates the Peter Maritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group, which publishes a monthly household affordability index that focuses on food prices in South Africa. So very, very welcome, Mervyn. And I would like now to screen the recording of your presentation that we have. And please, if you have questions to his presentation, please place them in the chat box. We can address 2 or 3 questions at the end of this screening. So recording on, please.
Good day, and thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. This presentation will focus on a research project commissioned by Fastenaktion in 2022 on agroecology in South Africa. The research was conducted amongst 35 groups of smallholder farmers who all practice agroecology, and the groups mainly consisted of Black African women. The key questions the research focused on was, what are the farmers' understanding of agroecology? How do they practice agroecology? And what kind of advocacy work are they engaged in order to further agroecology in South Africa? And secondly, the question, what do they think regarding agroecology as an entry point to a climate resilient alternative agricultural model for South Africa? The challenges that the research identified was that the policy environment around agriculture in South Africa favors that of the industrial corporate model of agriculture, and as such marginalizes agroecology as a mode of production. And resulting from this policy environment, agroecology therefore suffers with too little resources, capacity constraints, and farmers are not able to meet formal market standards, be this in terms of health and safety, or whether they are producing on the scale that the corporate sector requires. In order to meet these challenges, a number of mechanisms were identified. Firstly, and perhaps most importantly, to devise an advocacy strategy to ensure that agroecology comes to the center of government's policy framework. to create a greater policy space for agroecology. And in that space for agroecology, in that policy formulation, to suggest that agricultural production be considered as a continuum, starting with subsistence production, where most of the agroecological farmers might find themselves, towards the large commercial farms, and that there be, in a sense, differentiated strategies for each section of this continuum of agricultural production. Furthermore, that this policy framework think of agroecology not merely as the large commercial farms, but rather could consider them as a network of small-scale farms, all built and joined together in order to create the scale of production that the market requires. And finally, that in this advocacy for a new policy around agroecology, that perhaps we do not think of constructing an entire new policy, but that we look at some of the agroecology strategies in the existing framework in order to make such advocacy more palatable to the policymakers. As a result, the following measures was put in place. An advocacy strategy was devised by and large by a network of organizations, of CSOs and practitioners who are engaging in agroecology. And on the basis of that strategy, an open letter was sent to the Minister of Agriculture, signed by 58 organizations in South Africa. These organizations were then asked to make oral submissions to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Agriculture to share the advocacy goals and to ask for a broadening of policy space to include agroecology as actually an alternative agricultural model or an inclusion of agroecology in the agricultural policy framework of South Africa. This resulted in the members of the Portfolio Committee deciding to do 2 field visits where they will go see, listen, and learn from agroecology practitioners on what actually is pertaining within the space of agroecology. And secondly, a network of CSOs and practitioners, which in a sense did not have such an advocacy policy at the beginning, were now energized as a result of this research in order to engage in the policy space. What were the factors of the successes as we have it till today? The first was that this research brought evidence-based knowledge as well as an intensive policy analysis that policymakers both could understand and secondly could engage with. The report also informed this network of agroecology practitioners and CSOs, and this network of organizations created political power to challenge the state and policymakers, hold them accountable, and then force a shift in the policy space. So it created political power in order to shift. And the third area was a multi-pronged advocacy strategy Yes, a strategy focused on policymakers, but also around the universities in order to shift the mode of knowledge transfer, as well as to include agroecology in their curriculums for agricultural extension workers. We thank you for this opportunity.
I think we thank you, Mervyn, for this stimulating input. I think it showed very strongly how research can lead to a multi-pronged advocacy strategy by a network of organizations, how important it is that different actors get together and pull on the same string for more political power. I think that was shown very nicely. Thank you very much for this input. We do have time for 2-3 questions from the audience. Benno, are there some questions in the chat that could be directed towards Mervyn?
So far there are no questions.
No questions?
No, everything is clear. And now one is coming in. Natalie, Emil. And she's asking, what was the focus of the research committed? How did you use the results?
Mervyn, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. So let's say, let's start with the focus of the research. So the focus of the research really was in South Africa for a very long time. Small-scale farmers have been speaking about agroecology. We are doing agroecology. We are engaged in it. But it was very difficult to find a uniform voice as to what exactly do they mean by agroecology. So that was first an important thing. You know, what do you understand with this particular mode of agriculture? And then why are you engaged in it? So that was really an important issue at the beginning, the focus. And so what that revealed was that, for instance, agroecology is very often understood as farming in a manner that is connected to nature. It draws on indigenous knowledge, and it is climate resilient, and there are health benefits. So that's why the farmers were doing it. Agroecology. How they practice it varies, you know, across a number of different areas. And then, of course, we also wanted to know why they did it. And then we also wanted, from that angle, to look at the policy space, policy analysis. And it was really interesting when we looked at the policy analysis that for the South African government, agroecology equals livelihoods and poverty alleviation agriculture. So that's how the policymakers are thinking of it. It has to do with policy, with poverty alleviation. It has to do with farming on a very little small plot, but it's not considered. And so, for instance, agroecology is located in the Department of Social Development, which is a department of the state dealing with social security, deals with poverty alleviation, etc. It is not located in the Department of Agriculture. So in the policy analysis, it became clear that when the South African policy space speaks about food systems, and when they talk about food production, And when we talk about food security at a national level, then actually what we mean is corporate industrial agriculture.
Mervyn, may I sorry, interrupt you? We have very little time, so I request you kindly to be short with the answers. I think one important question is, how did these findings translate into the advocacy strategy? If you could briefly give us an answer on this important question. And so then afterwards, I would like to ask the participants to have more question answers in the working groups afterwards. But this one question I would be interested in.
Yes, so from the research, of course, the research was conducted by an activist researcher. The 35 organizations that participated received the research, and they decided to take the research and its outcomes into all the networks where they are engaged. And out of that came an agroecology network that now is pushing the agroecology framework. So the research was fed into organizations formed alliances, and that became the way of pushing the advocacy strategy.
Thank you very much. So I think, looking at the time, I guess we should move ahead to the introduction of the group works. I see in the chat there are a number of questions now popping up on the presentation. I kindly request you to address these questions in the group work that will follow now. We will have time for about 45 minutes in the group work. And so what are we going to do in this group work? So in this group work, we invite you to co-create an overview on promising mechanisms for other agroecological practitioners. So in the group work, you will discuss concrete examples, like we heard now, one example of an approach, and you will share your experiences and identify the success factors for either equitable local markets, for agroecological products, or for policies favoring agroecological food systems. So 2 of the 4 working groups will focus on equitable local markets, and the other 2 will focus on favorable equitable policies. And your group discussion will form the basis for the elaboration afterwards of an overview on different promising approaches, mechanisms for other agroecological practitioners. So therefore, it's really important that you capture the results of your discussions very well on the slides that we will provide a link for afterwards. So how will it work, this group work? You will be randomly allocated into a breakout room. And then once you are in the room, you will identify your room number, which is on the top of the screen. And then you find a corresponding slide with the same name. So once you have found your group slide, please add the names of the participants on the slide. You will see it at the left side. Read together the questions that you should discuss, and then select also a note taker. And this note taker will take notes directly on the slides of the discussion. And please select afterwards also a presenter. That presenter will present the most promising approach or mechanism afterwards in the plenary. So we have only 1 minute time afterwards in the plenary, so you are requested to select one promising mechanism to be presented afterwards in the plenary. If you have any technical issues, try to help each other, or send also a message to the help desk, which is Rina. Send a message to her if something doesn't work, or come back into the plenary, and we will guide you back. So I hope this works. I can now show you an example group slide so that you know what we are talking about. So here you see the slide of the group 1 that is going to talk about equitable local markets. First, as I said, add your names at the left-hand side there below Benno, for instance. And on the top, you will find the discussion questions. In the table, you can add afterwards also the success factors that led to a certain success. And on the title of mechanism, you can name your mechanism or approach. And then in the second row, you can shortly describe that mechanism. If you have any additional further information, please insert there a link. For instance, you have a presentation already, or on the website, sort of success approach described. So please add that there. So yes, this will all be very, very useful for us to make this compilation in the end. Are there questions with regard to this group work? I don't see anything in the chat. Where can we find the slides? Yes, exactly. So here you have now received the link to the Google Doc, and please try to find it, group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. It's about slides. I think it's about 29, slide 29. I think about around there you will find these slides. And yes, so in each group there will be a moderator. So Benno, for instance, is the moderator in group 1. I will be the moderator in group 2, and so on. So the first name on the participant list is the moderator. And then, so there are other 2 roles to be defined, a note taker and a presenter. Are we ready to send you to the breakout groups? If so, we wish you a very stimulating and interesting exchange and discussion.
Okay, I'm gonna open the groups and off you go.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Hello, everyone. Is everybody here? I see a bit less participants than before still. It looks like one group is lost. We are 10 people less than before the group work.
I think some also had to join early, but all of the groups have been closed, so everyone should be here.
Okay, should be here or has left. Okay, thank you very much. Rina, could I see the screen, the presentation on the reporting back of the working group, please? That's it. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome back. I hope you had good, inspiring exchanges in your groups. And so I invite now one representative from each group to present one promising mechanism chosen by the group. So you might have discussed more, but as time is always short in such exchanges, I would invite you to focus mainly on one now to report back in the plenary. So can I ask please the presenter of the group one to explain us briefly about the promising approach mechanism that was discussed and chosen in this group one, please?
My name is Erika, and we came up.
Sorry, this is group two on the slide. Can we see group one, please? Rina, or yes? Oh, no, group one. Yes, halfway. Okay. Yes, it's good enough, I think.
My name is Erika. We came up with 4 very promising examples. And I think it's okay for the group when I choose to present the first one, the participatory guarantee system. This was the example we had the most discussion about. And it is about getting a link between producers and consumers, and they define together criteria, and it is not given by a third party. The success factors are that it is a capacity building. You can say a community building between farmers and consumers. So the farmer gets a strong link to the consumer, and the consumer are also linked back. And it is also very important that it is a process. It isn't a one event, it is a process. And during this process, it is also very possible that women or people with a lower voice can have a bigger voice, and or disabled people or something like that be involved more in this process and into the community. But we think it's very important that there's a pre-knowledge on the farmer side, but it is also necessary that knowledge is available amongst the consumers. And also there's a need of a kind of awareness rising. And there was also the example that some consumers were engaged in the auditing, but they were very interested in the beginning and then not anymore. So that is all from my side. Would someone else of the group would like to add something? Please feel free. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you. Yes, I think PGS is known to a number of organizations, and I really think it's a promising approach. Thank you very much for this. So can I ask the group two to present one of the most promising approach discussed. Claudia, may I give you the floor?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Sorry, I'm having a problem here. Can you maybe scroll down a bit on the slide? Yes, and yes, so we can see the farmer. Maybe I think a bit. Yeah, here we go. The farmer producer company approach from Bangalore, Karnataka, India. Maybe just as a background information, we also talked a lot about direct selling mechanism, about this increased link between the producers and the consumers. And then we chose this one as the most promising example, or yeah, the one we got most information about. This organization of the farmer producer companies, which has like benefits on the marketing side, but also on the production side, in the sense that as an organization, they can get better prices for input material, and then they have a stronger negotiation power when negotiating the price. It's also got the benefit or the advantage of the ownership of, I guess, also knowledge building and everything. Empowerment to be mentioned. Let me check here what else we have. I'm just talking freely. Yes, the whole question of selling in bulks, taking away this task basically, or like outsourcing this task, so the farmers don't have to take care of this as well. Yes, there is no certification yet, but certain quality parameters are in place. Yes, I guess that's it from my side. Please feel free to add whatever I have forgotten. Yes, maybe the question of trust between the buyers and this farmer producer company that then also stands for a certain quality standard. Yes. I don't know if anyone of the group wants to add something, otherwise I'll close for now.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Let's move to the groups that discuss the enabling policy frameworks and approaches that help to favor equitable policies. So group 3, who would like to present one of the discussed promising approach?
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Roland. Good morning to everybody, and I would like to present one of those mechanisms that we discussed. It's a mechanism that is a bit lower on the slide that we are seeing. Could you scroll down a little bit, please? So it's to inform government-led research with agroecology mechanisms. So here's the thing. We from Fairtrade and our partners are convinced that agroforestry is a better way to produce cocoa in Ghana. And cocoa in Ghana is a strategic product. So the market is government-led or also government-informed. So what having mapped the market, we made sure that we get access to a government-led research institute and to inform them and have demonstration plots that compare that agroforestry plots on the one hand with conventional cocoa plots on the other, and to compare for them to be able to compare the results and analyze the plots. And they are in the process of doing that. And the results are promising, as we would have expected. And once they are convinced, they will include agroforestry as a recommended production method for cocoa production in Ghana, which can lead to a major breakthrough. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's all about creating evidence, showing evidence, displacing evidence to the government,
right.
to foster this enabling environment, correct?
Indeed.
Thank you very much. Something to add there from the group? No, then let's go to group 4. Okay, they talked also about less so on political issues, huh? Looks like. Who would like to present something?
So I was asked to speak for group 4, and if we could just scroll a bit down so you can see the extent of our discussions. It was quite wide-ranging. But at the end, we decided on perhaps, you know, what should we get ready? Perhaps just a little bit ahead. Yeah, on this one. Is perhaps the most basic or the first step question is to make sure that agroecology is in the correct government department. It finds itself in the correct policy space within the state. And if we can make sure that that happens, then of course it would immediately lead to a greater understanding around agroecology and its ability to provide food security for the country. Agroecology then can also be integrated in terms of not just the agricultural policies, but also in terms of the economic policies of the country, opening up more space for farmers, opening up, you know, connecting farmers to markets, all the kind of economic logistics that's required to ensure that farmers can get their produce to markets and get a fair price for their products. So we decided for that because it's the most fundamental question, it seems. I think that's why we chose that one. If we have that in place, then many other things can happen.
Can I ask a question? You said agroecology should be placed in the correct government department. Now we know that agroecology is a very holistic approach. Huh? It talks about health issues, nutrition, environment, food access, agriculture production, market. So which one is then the right, correct government department? Is it more about uniting the different departments and trying to make sure that they collaborate and exchange?
No. Well, I mean, that could also be, but that wasn't part of our discussion. If I can just report back what our discussion was. So our discussion was that agroecology as a form of agricultural production should be placed within the Department of Agriculture. Now, you are right, it could also be in health, because it's also about nutrition. It is also about participation. It is about all these different things. So I'm going on my own because we didn't discuss this in the group, and perhaps it's a local decision. It needs to be a local decision. So those who are engaged, I mean, like for us in South Africa, we would say it should go to agriculture. But in India, they might say it should go to a different department, etc. But we didn't discuss it in that way. We discussed it in our group as it should be included in agriculture, because that provides then the best possibility for farmers to markets, etc.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
I would, of course, challenge this now. But,
yes, of course. Yes.
But let's not go into this type of discussion. As you say, there would be many more minutes to discuss and debate about all this. But time is short, and I would like to stop with this, the working groups, and thank you very much for this active participation. And with this, I would like to introduce you to Bruce Campbell. Bruce, he's the Senior Policy Advisor at STC's Food Systems Section and focal point of the STC Agriculture and Food Systems Network. And as you might know, between September 2022 and 2023, SDC organized a food systems learning journey that some of us have attended. And I would like now to invite Bruce to share with us sort of the key takeaway of this food systems learning journey, and to relate the learnings to today's workshop that we have here. Bruce, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you very much for the invitation to take part in our this summative or intermediately summative event of the sister learning journey of Sufosec, which is every bit as important, complementary to what we've been trying to do over the last year. Our learning journey was very much maybe more intensive, but also shorter. It started in September 2022, and we've completed it in June. And so, yes, on the basis of what you request, I'll just run through a few points of what I think the main takeaways were for us, and then I'll just make some conclusions and links to what the important things that you've been discussing. Essentially, for us, it was an exhilarating experience. In the whole, we had more than 400 people who took part one way or another. Maybe a big surprise for us were the sheer number of people who were in their areas very, very capable, knew absolutely what they were doing, but they did not see their work actually in terms of systems. Now, we had 6 regional workshops across the world, and this went a long way to rectifying it, these for the participants, in order for them to think about what their own activities are, their own operations, and think what it meant in terms of working in a system. And so I think a lot of them found this very, very useful, and they said they wanted to take these ideas back into their working life, back into their organizations, and follow up on this. And we have actually within STC already seen a change of mindset in this regard. So I think it's important that when we talk about food systems, we're not simply replacing the word security with system and then carrying on as usual. It's very much about thinking more broadly about where we are, seeing our own work from a different perspective, and seeing it in context of the whole. And this is a mindset that has to be practiced, and this will probably take a number of years. Maybe another aspect that we're in our approach, which was important, was interdisciplinarity. We were working with a majority of the thematic policy advisors within SDC and the various themes, be it migration, DRR, water, gender, and so on, that we also foster in SDC. So been working with these linkages and thinking about how these linkages might be operationalized in particular geographic contexts. And this led to an awful lot of very good conversations with partners. And here we've emerged, I think, with a much better understanding by what we mean by food systems. I mean, we talked about this food systems in a general sense beforehand, but we're able to understand it more concisely for our own institutional orientation, and hope that our partners have been able to benefit similarly. So maybe at an outcome level, we do think of 3 major outcomes for food systems, one being environmental sustainability, the second being economic and social well-being, and the third being nutrition and food security. And these are 3 things which often are in tension with one another in terms of there might be trade-offs. Sometimes they can support one another. In other words, but in any case, these 3 outcomes, when we're doing food systems, have to be held in balance and held in view at the same time. Maybe, if I may, just a few context-specific insights that we had. One is that there's an urgency, an underestimated urgency at an institutional level to think about water and food together, as we have considerable parts of the world which are arid or semi-arid. I'm thinking here of the Middle East or Central Asia. Now, this seems something which is basically obvious. I mean, really, it's a no-brainer, but we've seen this is still not happening. Institutionally, many countries, one notable example, notable exception be Jordan, but many countries think of water resources and then they think of agriculture separately and silo these in different parts of their public administrations, and so there's a strong disjoint within this area, and this is something that has to be improved on, not least in our own programming, but certainly at an institutional level within these countries. And this is where I think the systemic thinking comes in, where when we start to think across these things. The other one was like climate change is a topic. We could not avoid that topic, not anywhere. We didn't try to, obviously, but it wasn't like, okay, this is going to be the thematic link that we want to emphasize in this particular area, but it kept on coming wherever we were. So climate change is real, it's happening, and we have to deal with it. And we have to deal with it in a way, obviously, we want to go work more and more at the root causes in the sense that food systems do produce like a third of the greenhouse gases. That will be difficult to bring down, but it is possible. But we also need to work at a kind of mitigation level. Another aspect was that programming is often focused on the problems we have today. That's okay, but it's not enough. We have to think about the problems in a temporal dimension. What are we going to be dealing with in 10 or 15 years? And that's what we should be aiming at, every bit as much, or even more than what we're doing at the moment. So this is where we need to apply more foresight and scenario planning analysis for our programming. Then one aspect about innovation is important and good, but it is also important to do programs and let them mature. So do the innovative thing, but keep doing it at least for a while before jumping to the next, because there's always this question around, yeah, what's innovative about this project or this approach? And at some point you're going to say, well, in the short term, nothing, but it works. And what's innovative is that we're actually doing it until it becomes sustainable. So there's this patience aspect which isn't present everywhere in the community, development community. And a final one before I just make a few kind of final comments is institutional boundaries. I mentioned it a little bit beforehand in terms of water and food security, but one thing we did see is that a lot of state authorities are tasked with a narrow range of responsibilities, and they may often do their job very, very well, but they are institutionally prevented to engage in foresight planning and systemic thinking, because suddenly they'll find themselves outside their area of responsibility, outside their own turf, and that can quickly lead to friction within public administrations. So there needs to be an awful lot more done at a policy level to bring institutions together and break down these silos. For us institutionally, and here my final comments, we have a continued thematic commitment to agroecology, at least because it's so important right across the food system spectrum. We also want to pursue promoting, fostering equitable markets for all, and to improving nutrition, not least for those who are often left behind. So in this sense, we are continuing to work towards contributing positively to all three food systems outcomes, as I mentioned beforehand. Now, coming maybe to the linkage to Sufosec, we cannot all do the whole food systems. SCC can't do it. You as our partners, you can't do it. However, we all have our individual strengths, and what's important is that we knit them together and work in a joined up and operationalized way. I mean, the many initiatives, the mechanisms that we've been discussing this morning, I think are really good. Where we can make them even better is, at least in a particular context, linking them up and starting to, where possible, to string them together as a whole. And that's where we begin to see the systemic improvement that we're actually hoping to gain. And I think this is why initiatives organizations such as Sufosec are so important in order to improve this dialogue, get joint learnings, and change the perspective of what we're doing. instead of just being in our own individual cubicles, which and to thinking, how do we link our operations, how do we link our initiatives to really create the systemic approach. And the very last point is think of the context and be pragmatic. Ideology often gets in the way, or just basically just gets in the way of systems thinking. Principles and values are eminently important, and we should be guided by them, but we should not be ruled by ideas, because that can often hinder our effort to build better food systems. Building food systems is always being ready to listen to another perspective and testing it, taking the good, obviously not the bad from it, not only now, but in the long term for the sake of building better food systems. So I'll stop here. Say thank you very much, Sarah, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Bruce, for these reflections. Yes, joining hands, systems approach needs holistic approaches, linking all the promising approaches together up, think context specific, be pragmatic. Thank you very much. We've noted these reflections very much and can see, the complementarities also with the learning journey SDC has been carrying out, a very successful learning journey, I think. So, we are at the end of this online workshop. Kind participants, I would like now to invite you to reflect on your main takeaways from today's workshop. So I invite you kindly to place them in the chat box, and we'll just have time to mention one or the other while they are popping up. So I'll give you some time for you to reflect on what you learned today and what has been your eye-opener today during these 2 past hours. Somebody learned that agroecology is really a holistic interdisciplinary approach, what was stressed by Bruce as well. Again, food system transformation is more than just agroecological production. I think that probably we heard today again. Taking a systems approach is important. Think water and agriculture together. Farmers need to own their land, how important it is. Land tenure is very important to invest in the soil, in the land, to engage. Which ministry? Okay, that question has to be debated further. How do we collaborate probably across different ministries where agroecology should be situated and is dealt with as a holistic approach? Somebody learned more about the market system approach. Farmer producer company was a good example of a promising approach. So yes, I think with this, I invite you to continue. So I get the impression there is quite some learnings from this online workshop today, which is absolutely fantastic and great, which this was also the idea. So how do we continue from here? So we, the learning group Agroecology, the core group of Sufosec, will now draft an overview on these promising mechanisms. We put them together in one document. We'll then share this document with you. You will be invited to comment and to add. And then finally, we will share this product publicly like we did with the other 2 synthesis documents that you have received the link from. So with this, I think we are at the end, and I would like to thank you very much for joining this co-creation workshop and generating knowledge together once again. On behalf of the Sufosec Alliance, I would like to say bye-bye, and hopefully we will see each other another time. And please don't forget to fill in the survey at the end of this online workshop. It will pop up as soon as we close here. Wow. Thank you very much for everybody to join. Thank you,
Sarah.
And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.